Hi everyone and welcome to this video. Today we're going to take a look at loops in JavaScript. See, a loop is a feature of JavaScript and other programming languages that enables us to write or execute a piece of code repeatedly as long as the condition we set is true. Now, it is only when the condition is no longer true or when the condition becomes false that is when the repetitive execution stops. This process of the repeated execution is called iteration, and it happens for each of the value, be it inside an array or an object. It happens for them individually. So in JavaScript, we have 5 different loop statements. We have the for loop, the for in loop. Let me see. I'm going to the for loop, the for loop, the for in loop, or the for of loop, the for in loop, yeah, that's for in loop too. For in loop. Then we have the while loop and do while loop. Do while loop. So the way these 5 loop statements work allows us to further break them down into 2 different types. Although it's not necessary though, but it allows you to understand it even better. So we break them down into definite loops and indefinite loops. Now, definite loops are loops that the number of times they will execute is known beforehand. Okay, so we already know how many times they are going to execute because it has been set already. And the type of loops under the definite loops are for loop, the for of loop, and for in loop. So indefinite loops, on the other hand, are loops that continue to execute until a condition is met, or it continues to execute as long as a condition is true. So the number of times an indefinite loop will execute is not set beforehand. Okay, so under the indefinite loops, we have while loop and do while loop. So these two here, while loop and do while loop, are indefinite loops, and for in, for of, and for loops are definite. So enough of the talks. Let's see some examples. And the first one we're going to do is the for loop. So we simply do for we do let I equals 0. Or we can do let I equals 1, but let's do let I equals 0. Let I equals 0, I less than 10. And I plus plus. So we do console.log I. So let's save come down here and execute the code, we do node loops. So we get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, we see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, if you want it to be exactly 10, we can say less than 11, right? Less than 11, we come down here and run it. It works. And we can also say less than or equal to 10. Okay, so we save, come down here, and we still get 10. Because 10 is not less than 10, but 10 is equal to 10. So less than or equal to 10 also works. And we can use this to solve a fun problem. We can say something like, okay, let's go up here and remodify it. And we do plus, or write a message. Okay, let's say you want to apologize to someone, right? Let's say you want to apologize to someone and you want to, I'm sorry. Okay, and we haven't talked about this in string. What if you want to use a single quote inside a single quote? Let's go ahead and try it. So something like this, in a situation like this, how do we do it? So you simply use, is it a back or no? It's not back. Yeah, it's forward slash. Is it? Oh, sorry. I think I've forgotten. No, like this. Wait, I should get it because oh, now this is really, really messy. Okay, I'll check and see. When I remember, I'll let you guys know. But I think it's something like forward slash or backslash. But I've forgotten the syntax. I'm going to use a double quote, and then when I get it, I'll let you know how to use this slash with the single quotes. So we'll say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So you see, these things happens a lot, and in programming, you don't need to cram anything because there is so much concepts that you don't need to cram, be it your string methods, your array methods, and anything like that. You don't need to cram them. But when the time comes and you need to use them, you know there is something like that. You can simply use them. After this video, I'm going to go back and check and try to solve some problems using it, but I've forgotten it. It should be a forward slash or a backslash. Then I've forgotten where you are supposed to place it. Maybe before the I or after the M, something like that. It's been quite some time I use it. So we save. And then when we come down here to run our code, what do we get? We get I'm sorry 0 and everything is rolled up together. So we get I'm sorry 1 to 10. Now the second loop we're going to talk about is the for of loop. Now, the for of loop iterates over the individual values in an object or an array that we want to iterate over. So let's see an example like this. I will create an array first. Do const. Let's use fruits. Const fruits equals mango. Mango, apple, and apple the fruit, not apple the company. Orange, orange, and banana. Let's make it 4. And banana. So that's the end of it. Now let's use our fourth loop on it. So we're going to say for of. Let me just use the syntax. So almost every programmer, in fact, every programmer uses I in iterations, but it's not compulsory you use I. Okay, you can use anything you want to use. And as I always say, make sure you write code that is understandable. Now we want to use the for loop to iterate over every single object. Because we have 4 fruits here, we name the array fruits. Now when we remove one out of it, we have fruits, right? So since we are going to be using just one, iterating over individual values, we are going to break it down into fruits. And now I'll change it to fruits. And it feels just so wrong not to use I, because I always use I for I less than 0, something like that. For fruits, now we do for fruits, const fruits of fruits. Okay, now when we do for const fruits of fruits, we are saying for every single fruit of the fruits array, right? So we console.log console.log fruits. Yeah. So we save, come down here and see what we get. We get mango, apple, orange, and banana. Okay, we get everything. Now we can make it even more meaningful by adding I love whatsoever. You can write something like I love mango, I love fruits. We just write I love, and then whatever comes we feel like adding to it. So we write I love. Okay, let's just keep it at that. Then we add a plus out here. Save. Say I love mangoes, I love apple, I love orange, I love banana. Right. So the next loop we will try out is the for in loop. And this for in loop, I think it's a little bit confusing. Okay. And I'm not really going to do an example on it, because why it's confusing is because, not really confusing though, but we cannot use it on arrays in a reasonable way. So it performs activities or iterations primarily on objects or object literal. Now, it iterates over the properties of the object and executes the individual properties in that object. Now, when we try to use the for in loop on array, like we've been doing, or like we've done with this for of loop, what we'll get is not exactly what we want. For example, let's try something like let's try something like let's use it on fruits. Right, let's use it on fruits. So we say for in. No, oh, and you can even see the syntax already, that the syntax is meant for objects. For in, so we say for fruits. Let's use for I in fruits. For I in fruits. And what should we do? Console.log fruits. Console.log fruits. Console.log I, sorry. and we save. When we come down here, what we get, so you see, when we save and come down here, what we get is not the values inside fruit. We did not get mango, apple, orange, and banana. No. But instead, what we get is this index that gets returned, the index of the values inside the array. So, in fact, there's no need to talk too much or dive deep about it. Don't use for in loops on arrays. Simply use them on objects. That is what the for in loop is meant for. Use them on objects. When you use them on arrays, they don't work. Or at least they don't work the way you want. Now we are done with the definite loops. The next ones we're going to look at are the indefinite loops. Right? Now we will look at while loop. So how does while loop works? A while loop evaluates a condition first. And this first is very important because it will help you to know the difference between while loop and do while loop. So it evaluates a condition first. And if the condition is true, the code is executed. This process is repeated consecutively until the condition becomes false. Then the execution ends, or it's what we call break. So let's see an example. And we do let number, or let's my number. Let my number equals 1, right? And we do while, and we see, I like VS Code, it makes life easy. While number, my number, less than, what should we do? While my number less than, let's say 7. Let's just use something. While my number less than 7, right? Console.log I. I keep using I because I always use I in the loops. So I keep saying I. And many people also use I. It's not something unique to me. Almost everybody uses I. But it's nice to use meaningful variable names. For instance, in our for of loop, I really like the way we write it. Const fruits, I will say fruit of fruits. That lets you know it's iterating over the individual elements inside the array. Now we do my number plus plus. My number plus plus. Now we save and run the code and see what we have. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because all these are less than 7. So if we go ahead and let's say, one thing you should know when using while loop is that there are some conditions you can set and the code will run indefinitely. That is, it will not stop. Now, it's very important for us to know certain things like this, my number plus plus here. If in a situation we did not add my number plus plus, so what do we see? We will not get any error, okay? But rather, this is one of those situations where our loop will continue executing indefinitely. It will never stop executing as long as our computer keeps running, unless we kill the terminal or break out of it. So we enter, and you see one keeps printing here aggressively. So this is how it goes, and it will continue to go like this. And you see, it's just kind of funny because we've been printing one and it doesn't even want to stop. So let's just go ahead and kill the terminal, then bring it up again. All right, node loops. Oh, let me remove these comments so we don't repeat what just happened again. And we save, and now when we run it, sorry, node loops. Yeah, and we get what we want to get. So the very last loop statement we're going to talk about is the do while loop. Now, the do while loop is obviously in the name, you know it's related to while loop, but the way it works is almost opposite. Okay, and I'm going to explain how it works. So, do while loop execute the code first. Remember what I said in while loop? It checks if the condition is true first. But do while loop executes the code first and then checks if the condition is true. Okay, so let's try out some examples and do something like let I also. Okay, let's do let I. We can just use my number. We can just use my number. So we say do do while statement do console.log my number. Console.log my number. Console.log my number. My number plus plus. And then we set our condition. So you can even see it with the syntax that VS Code gave us. Condition comes last. So here, what is our condition again? We are going to say while I less than, okay, let's use 10 this time around. In the first one, we use 7. So while my number less than 10. And I keep looking at where is the I variable, not know it's my number, but I keep making the mistake, I. So we say console.log my number plus plus. Then while I less than 0, we save, come down here. So even though you don't really observe any difference, what happens is it executes first before checking the condition. So even if the condition is not true, okay, even if the condition is not true, we will still get an execution first. So, okay, let's try an example and you'll see what I'm talking about. Let's set my number equals 12 and save. So you see, we still get 12. And that is weird because my number 12, the value of my number, which is 12 here, is obviously greater than 10. But we still get it anyway. In fact, you can see our while loop doesn't even bother to execute because the condition is not true, so it can't iterate. But in our do while loop, we still get 12. It has started the count from 12. Then when it console.log 12, it comes down to check the condition. Oh, the condition is true, not true. The condition is false. So it cannot continue to print 13 and so on. So it just has to break out of the code. So now you understand how while loop, do while loop, for loop, for off loop. And when we talk about objects, which is going to be the next video I'll be making, I'm going to make an example with the for in loop on objects. So you can see the while loop checks the condition first and then executes. But do while loop executes first at least once before it checks the condition. So let's save. Then there is a word I've been using since, break, break, break. So what break does is just that it allows you to break out of a code, right? It allows you to break out of a code, and it still gives you options left. So let's say um in a situation like this, let me use our while loop. In a situation like this, now we say my number plus plus. So, but what if, even though we set the option to be less than 7, but we say, okay, we want to do something that is not up to 7, and we want to execute the code just 5 times out of that 7, we can use the break keyword. So once again, let's execute our code first. And you can see, and you can see, let me comment out this. I think they are messing with each other. Now let's save, because I want to use the while loop, not the do while loop. Now you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when we come down here, and no, not down here, up here rather, and we use the if statement. If if my number equals 5, if my number equals 5, break. So you see, it prints just 1, 2, 3, 4, and it breaks out of the code. Okay, it breaks out of the code. So it will not print the 5, the value we use to set the condition. No, it will store one value before it. So if, for instance, if we change it to 3, so we only get 1, 2. Let's do 3 and save. Then come down here to run the code. So, and we get 1, 2. That is where it stops. So we have come to the end of this video, and once again, I'm going to keep begging you, practice, practice, practice. Okay, continue to practice as much as you can. And when I say practice, I'm not telling you build a project, I'm not telling you to build the next Facebook. Just use all these things, mess around with them, take them to the extreme. Okay, take them to the very limits. And always, you can always ask me questions in the comment section below. And that's all for this video. Once again, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It helps me a lot and helps what I do. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.